Welcome to Empower Her Voices podcast. It's a podcast where we share stories, insights, and strategies that actually empower women to break barriers, embrace leadership, and thrive in every aspect of life. So, in today's episode, I'm here, your host Faiza Tasawwur, and we'll talk about the importance and significance of building connections and breaking barriers by having the resilience of self confidence, trust, and self worth. So, for today's episode, we have with us Professor George Manning. He is a trailblazer when it comes to education, psychology, and business for the last 5 decades. He's a professor since 1970 at the University of Northern Kentucky, USA, and he has authored more than 11 incredible books, and he has this incredible quality of connecting with people globally, and he has also helped um, hundreds and thousands of people to unlock their potential. So we'll start the episode by welcoming our guest, Professor George Manning. Welcome, Professor, and thank you for taking time out to be a part of this series. We are really grateful for that. And we are quite sure that in today's episode, with your wisdom and intellect, we are definitely going to learn a lot, and especially for the women and girls for whom this series has been dedicated, they are going to take a lot out of it.
Yeah. Well, in America, a very influential woman uh, to this very day was Eleanor Roosevelt, uh, the wife of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And she wrote an article every day called My Day for the newspapers in America,
Okay.
her, her entire adult life. And everybody read that uh, column in all the newspapers. And they got so much out of it. Well, one of the things she said is every year do something new, something that you've never done before that will stretch you and open you up to new, uh, exciting things. So whether that's go to school or whether that's travel abroad or whether that's write a book, to something new every year, plant a new crop, whatever. So a thing that I'm doing new right now is this podcast because I have never done an international podcast. And my whole orientation by and large has been America. So this is a big treat for me. I'm thinking that FISA is that's a whole new world, the world of, I guess you call it Pakistan and that area of the world. So this is my new thing in the spirit of Eleanor Roosevelt.
Great, great. So it's a pleasure for us as well to have you with us because the kind of wisdom and experience you have, we would really want to learn, and especially when it comes to psychology and when it comes to understanding about the relationships, about human behavior, human psychology. This is something really crucial, particular specifically in our life, day-to-day life. And I really like what you have just said, that every day is about something new. So you're going to come up with something new, you're going to learn something new. So that's something really nice. And Professor, we would like you to walk us through your journey and tell us that, how did you discover your passion for connecting with people when it's about obviously psychology business? Because you have authored like more than 11 books. That's like an incredible feat, right? And you have this ability of connecting with people despite the fact whatever the audience is. So what was your inspiration, and then starting from an educator to a psychologist and then coming towards the business and industry? Just we would like to know more about your journey.
Um, well, I'd like to start by saying something that you've made me think about right in the beginning. Psychology and philosophy are big interests for me. Those were my majors in school. But, uh, and it's not new, but it's true, I think, that after biology, basic biology, um, what will decide a human life is worldwide is one, what you tell yourself that you believe, your concept of yourself. Some people look in the mirror and say, "You've got your problems," and that pulls them down. Other people look in the mirror and say, "You're not perfect, but man, look at those strengths." So the whole idea of self-concept, we live up to or down to our self-concept. The second is the people we're around. And we are social beings, and some people can pull us down. Maybe everybody's met somebody in their life who would pull them down if given a chance. And other people will lift us up and make our lives great. So the key is to surround yourself with people who care about you and will lift you up and make your life great as best you can, and be that way for others. There's a saying that we become the average of our five best friends, and I think there's a lot of truth in that. So you want to be a good friend to others too. And then the third thing is your books you read, and other source of media, such as a podcast like this, or a lecture, or a video, or a film. So those three things, after biology, help determine a human life. Um, about the books, back to the psychology, uh, I always like to suggest books. And if there was only one psychology book you were ever to read in your life, I think it might be Man's Search for Meaning, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. The New York Times and the Library of Congress, both in the United States, uh, asked uh, what book has meant the most to you. And number one was the Bible, and number nine was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. So I think that book is a good one. And the punchline is everybody needs something important yet to be done. And it will focus and energize them and help them fulfill their potential for living. Another book that young people like a lot is um, by Andy Andrews, and it's been popular for a year or two, and it helps them make decisions about life. And I wrote that one down. What is that book? Uh, it is well, The Traveler's Gift. The Traveler's Gift. And we can learn from very famous people in history what they discovered on their journeys. And young people like that. And psychology types like another book called The Body Keeps the Score. The Body Keeps the Score. And this is done by a fellow uh, from Holland. And his name is Besser van der um Kolk. And the idea that we can have traumatic experiences, and the body knows it, and the body keeps a score, and it can help us have psychological health to know that. And then one last psychology kind of book, a wonderful book called Behave. The name of it is Behave, and a fellow named Robert Sapolsky. That's a Polish name, but he's an American fellow at Stanford University, a primatologist who uh, understands biology, and I think he got some help in the area of sociology. He wrote a very good book called Behave. So I wanted the audience to know about good books. There's, you know, a book read at the right time can change everything that follows, and Man's Search for Meaning, for example, can, and same with the others. Yeah,
Great,
you,
great.
you, asked, you asked where I came from. I'm a middle America fella, Middletown, Ohio, small town raised, 16 in my dad's family and 11 in my mom. And if you just think about the typical boy raised in the 40s. I was born in 43 and 50s in America. That would be me. Um, the first in my family to go to college. And I went to Chicago, which was a big eye opening thing for a small town boy. And I did get the chance to go to Vienna in 1963, 64, which brings me to a point that both men and women should know. Um, if they get the chance to experience another culture, uh, almost nothing can beat that. They'll come to understand different points of view and different experiences people have, and it can run the gamut from delicious foods to wonderful music to whole ways of raising children or ways of behaving in the community. It's a good thing to have an international experience sometime in your life. Sometime in your life. Well, uh, go
Yeah.
forth.
Yeah, true, George. You're 101% right when it comes to learning about different cultures. It's about, sharing and experiencing their stories, their insights, and then you learn a lot, and then you can somehow relate. Because at the end of the day, we all are humans. We have those feelings. We have, we react or act in certain situations. Then it depends how we are going to act and react. So, talking about the books, thank you so much. You have shared the name of a couple of important books, and we'll definitely go through it. So, you have authored 11 books, right? And the best thing that I have figured out so far, or I have learned so far, is I really like how you blend humor with practical tips, because this is where a human who is not an author can easily relate to it when it's about practical tips. So, what do you think how the woman or young girl nowadays can actually take inspiration from this strategy to boost their confidence, self esteem, and self worth? Because this is something which is lacking nowadays in majority of the women, and they are struggling somehow, somewhere. Some of them are outshining, but some of them are not even over here. So how can they kind of figure out to come up with these three things, which is confidence, self-esteem, and self-worth?
Those are challenges for every person, male or female, around the globe, the entire globe. Um, I think, in general, happiness comes from three things. Uh, Number one is do what you were called to do. Do do the thing that is the essence of you, whether it's art or science or raising children in the home, cooking, um, uh, having a business, creating a business, whatever is the essence of you, uh, do the work you love. And the second secret is to, if you're lucky, join up with the right partner, someone who's right for you. Uh, and basically, you need to have the same morality level, and you need to have the same skills or ability level. Again, one might be a farmer, the other partner might be a finance person, but they have to have that same intellectual level. And then three, um, you got to have a partner who wants the same thing, whether it's to live in the city or live in the country or have three children or one children or no children. They got to want the same thing. And then lastly, you and the partner have to be equally committed to the relationship. And then the third secret to happiness is to count your blessings. Um, every day, pause for a minute to say thanks for your blessing. Now, your blessing might be your family, it might be your good health, it might be the fact that you have found your calling. Uh, but everybody's got blessings. You might say, thank goodness I'm from Pakistan, or thank goodness I've got a good um, uh, education, whatever it is, count your blessing. Those are the three secrets to happiness, I do believe. You'll wonder why I always talk about threes. Um, Years ago, I heard that storytellers uh, found that people can remember three. They can't remember 10 commandments, but they can remember three things in a crisis. And so that's the reason why you have stories about three bears and three blind mice and and three musketeers and three act plays. And you can handle three, can't handle more. Uh,
So George, there's something. It's very interesting what you have said. So you are saying that it's something in our subconscious about this three-bit, because you're saying everything is like into three, right? This is interesting. So if you can just tell a bit more about this thing.
um, what I'm saying is that people who want to get a message across, like a storyteller, down through the ages, they've learned that do things in three, maybe like a three parts of the book, or three act play, or three Billy Goats Gruff, or three Stooges. People can handle three. They have trouble with more than three things, especially when there's a crisis going on or something like that. Um, Now, the thing about stories, I believe that if you're going to know yourself, uh, um, you'd have to think about what books touched you when you were young. Um, it might have been The Ugly Duckling. It might have been The Little Engine Who Could. But what are the significant books that kind of touched you, and you'll know yourself better? And then in terms of communicating with other people, you have to realize that they've been exposed to different books and different stories and different, you know, um, legends and so on. And then that makes them have different ways of behaving. I know whenever I have to give a talk, uh, especially in the South in America, I'll start out by saying that basically there's three ways that storytellers tend to start their stories. In the old world, old England, old Germany, they say there was a time. That's how they start their stories. There was a time. And in America, they always start stories with once upon a time. That's how they start the story. Once upon a time. But in the South, the states in America like Mississippi and Alabama, Louisiana, the southern part, they the way they start their stories is y'all ain't going to believe this, and then they tell the story. So everybody has different ways of talking, eating, working, and so on. And to really relate well to them, you have to care about and value the differences, and and everybody benefits from that.
True, true. So, George, as you were telling us, this is something very interesting when you say that, in some part they say once upon a time, and somebody is going to start by building a curiosity. So, it's storytelling is all about, like, what I feel, it's like building authentic connections or to resonate with that certain situation, character. So nowadays, in this digital age where we are in 21st century, it's really crucial to have authentic connections. And so, like, what's the secret? Because this is something lacking nowadays in almost in all age groups, right? I'm not just focusing on one age group. So, like, what's the secret, or what's that bit through which we can actually build trust and can have authenticity in our relationships, may it be a personal relationship or professional, in every walk of life? So how a woman or a young girl starting from her early age can actually, what is she supposed to do to have that authenticity, to have that thing in her that she don't needs to compromise on her individuality. She should be what she is. She don't need to change herself. If she has to, it should be for the good. So what would you say about this?
I I think you make me want to say two things. I think it's much harder for the girl to be uh, follow a unique path compared to what everybody else follows in her culture versus some other cultures that it's supported and encouraged for them to follow their own path. There's a woman I've known for a while, and she's going to Greece with her child. She was in Germany. She was in America. She's a very intelligent and person with integrity, and she's a professor type. And she was raised in China in the time of the Mao Zedong and heavy dominance of the Communist Party. And I met her in Missouri at a lecture I gave, and she was asking some questions, and I asked her a question. I said, um, "Ling, who who has had more? Who impacts China people more today? Um, the Communist Party or um, um, Confucius?" And she she said at home it's more Confucius, and in the community, in on the street, in the community, it's more the communist doctrine. So this young lady would have a Confucius type family that would love her to death and want the everything good for her life. Uh, and she had the opportunity to go to America to study. I do think it's good to have a broadening experience, as I was saying, and she did. And she became more independent minded and behaving all her life. All the while, her family would be like a like a anchor on that, and not really, fully being supportive. Compared to you take the young woman in America, tends to be her family. Oh, you want to be a nurse? Fabulous. You want to be horticulturalist? Let's do it. You want to be a skater? Uh, let's do it. There's that support there. I know I worked in the kibbutz in Israel in 63, 64, and the fellow who took me around, Israel was his name, and it was a big eye opening experience for a young American kid, 19 or so. Um, it's what kibbutzism is in Israel is communal living, and it's about a third of them are religious, about a third not so much, and about a third somewhere in the middle. But at any rate, this fellow Israel thought the kibbutz was his primary parent, so to speak, as opposed to his actual mom and dad who lived at the kibbutz. And that was unique to me, American kid. I didn't. I felt my primary was the mother and father. He thought his was the community, and that colors what people do in what they value and what they do. But what was I going to say? I was going to say something there other than what I just said, but let's keep going.
Oh, okay, great, great. So, George, as you've mentioned about different countries and how people are actually um, responding to different situations at home, like privately with their family and in public as well. So you have worked across different industries, starting from business to government, and you have seen leadership of all forms. And psychology plays an integral role when it comes to leading from the front or about doing so. How can a woman take inspiration when it comes to, that she has to lead from the front? What is that thing which can actually make her push her own boundaries, by keeping in view that, the areas where, as you have already mentioned, that there are certain cultures and areas where the woman is not being encouraged, right? So how can she take inspiration from the principles, or from the, you can say, the basics or the magic rules that you have said it, right, the three codes, from psychology, if she intends to lead in any profession? So what do you want to say about this?
Well, what leadership is social influence. That's exactly what it is. If you look it up in the dictionary, it's social influence. And that won't happen unless the leader or leaders care about the work, care about the mission, care about the store, care about the church, no, care about the mission. And that can't be faked. And it won't work unless they care about the people. And that can't be faked. And you know who's selfish and who isn't selfish. And people the world over want their leaders to care about them and care about the task to be done. Both. Those can't be gotten out of a book or out of a lecture, but if a leader, woman or man, cares about the work, the enterprise, and cares about people, they've got the two basics for leadership. Now, it's interesting. The women of America in the war, World War II, they would be in the plants and producing parts and making airplanes and all. After the war, we, we had lots of babies, and um, time went on. In the '60s and '70s, women had opportunities to have babies and have work, or just have work, or just have babies. They had opportunity to the point that in America today, believe it or not, half the people working are women, and half the supervisory managerial class are women. And they are good or bad. Men are good or bad in their positions. Um, and but in general, women and men do equally well. Now, there are some industries that lean a little toward the male, and some industries or professions that lean demographically, that lean a little toward the woman. The ones that lean a little toward the male are those very physical things like mining and fishing and forestry and things like that, construction. And those that lean a little toward the women are more the helping and serving things like hospitals and education and child care, those sorts of things. However, the fact is now in the world of work, men and women are equally good leaders, and there's equal numbers of them working and leading in American culture. Now, what the woman and the man needs to have is a mindset that is a service mindset in order to succeed. They might be okay in the short run, but they won't be okay in the long run unless they have a servant leadership mindset. And what that means is, if you could imagine a organization structure like the pyramid, and you need that few leaders at the top, more in the middle, and the workers at the bottom. The church needs it, the military needs it, everybody needs that to make things organized and effective. But if it's going to fulfill its potential, you got to operate it in an upside down pyramid way, where the leader thinks her whole thing is to serve that group reporting to her. And that group thinks their whole thing, their purpose, is to serve the people who are doing the work. Because 80% of the work done in society or an institution in the society in general is done by the frontline people, by the firemen, by the frontline banking people, the frontline manufacturing people, the frontline people. Um, Operationally, how you got to do that, a leader will do that, is one, they got to see themselves as a servant leader. But operationally, they got to be available. They got to be there. Number two, they got to be really good communicators, communicating what they want and why, and listening and finding out from the people what the facts are on the firing line, what they want and need. And number three, they have to be supportive, like making sure the people have got the right equipment or the right materials or the right schedule. They have to be supportive. And so communications, access, and support is what's needed to be uh, and a mindset of being a servant leader. Now, that's true no matter what the industry is. No matter, it could be law enforcement, it could be hospitality. Um, uh, and that's very true in America. I don't know about other cultures so much, but I bet that's true. Here's a story. You always like stories. There's a fella named Walt Bettinger, and he rose up to be the head of Schwab, which is a big financial institution. And he tells a story about going to college and um, probably a graduate program at some place, probably like Wharton. And he had a 4 point average going into the final. He had a really good record. And the course was on strategic management or something like that. The teacher gave a test. The teacher said, now this has got one question on the test, and it will decide whether you pass or fail. So the question was, what is the name of the woman who uh, uh, keeps things clean? The woman in the building, in the classroom, that keeps things open and clean. Well, he didn't have the foggiest idea who that was. And so he flunked. Her name was Dottie. Her name was Dottie. And anyone who didn't know that name, they flunked. And that ruined his good record in college. So for the rest of his life, he made sure that he knew the frontline people who were actually doing the soldiering, the sailoring, the making the beds in the rooms in the hospital. He made sure he knew the frontline people. So he learned from experience, and that's a good story. Another good story. Okay, so let's say those are leadership stories, but let's just talk about you're not a leader, you're in sales. You're not a leader, you're in engineering. You're not a leader, you're a teacher. You've got to have um, bravery to try things. Uh, there's a story about two young marketing fellas, uh, and they were sent by their company to Africa to decide whether they ought to have a plant making shoes in Africa. And the one uh, fella wires back, uh, no need. We don't. We don't. We don't need to do this at all because the people here don't wear shoes. And the other one wired back, get the hides and tan the hides and get a factory and get the experts in to make these shoes because everybody here needs shoes. And you see the different mindset to succeed. So that I think that that's a good mindset for everybody to have, whether their field is whatever their field is. Um, uh, Rise to the challenge. Rise to the challenge.
Great, great. Thank you, George, for sharing these different perspectives. These stories always give us, if you're thinking about this side, the story is telling on the other side as well. So both sides are in front of us. And when communicating with people from different cultures, there's always a lot that we can learn. And in today's episode. It was truly a rich and engaging conversation. And from your wisdom, and especially the takeaway for myself is like, you have said that leadership is all about social influence. It's about caring for people. And then you have also mentioned that, it's about the service mindset that one needs to have. So, for all the viewers, who have tuned in. So, leadership is not about perfection, it's about purpose, confidence, and then connection as well. And then, as George had said, that you need to have that social influence in order to become a leader. So, leader is not like a dictator who is there on the top positions and giving orders. No, it's a dictator. We're talking about leadership. So there are lots of things that George has shared in terms of how you can actually, and I would really recommend and in fact request the audience to go for those books which George has mentioned, because at the end of the day there's a lot of knowledge out there in those books which can benefit us. And let's amplify those voices, and then you can see a ripple of change. And thank you so much once again, George, for being here with us. And there's a lot that we have learned from your side, and there's a lot more that we can still learn. And we'll definitely go through the books as well. And thank you to all the viewers as well. You just need to remember that you have the power inside you. Just that you need to realize, you need to believe in yourself. And then, as I'll again repeat what George has said, that always keep in mind the concept of social influence. It's about giving back to the society, not just it's not always about that you have to take, you have to give back. So this is how communities, societies can rise. And talking about women empowerment, it's not about one single person, it's about a collective effort of all the boys, women, men out there. And let's just join hands when it comes to helping others. And until next time, just stay bold and keep on raising your voices. And I would like George to, just put a closing note, and we'll just end with this episode. A piece of advice that you want to give to the young girls out there.
Well, I love the way you summarize things because that's a good thing to spell out what we covered. That was beautiful, the way that you summarized things for all of us. Um, I think that everybody has a Pakistani dream, American dream, a French dream, probably. In general, is number one. Do the work they love, whether that's have a farm or have a business or have a profession. Uh, and number two is to probably have some form of family. Um, I remember now what I wanted to tell you. Um, Teaching all these years since 1966, basically, uh, college and university, uh, the student society events would change, the students would change, and I would always ask them what's most important to you. And guess what the number one thing every year was? Family. Now,
Wow.
the definition of family for this one might be different than the definition of family for that one, or the definition of family in the um, 80s might be different than 2025, but it's always than family, male or female. That's what they say is family. So that's a universal thing. So they want to do the work they love. That's a dream, and have a family, however you want to define it. And you know what the third thing is? You said something about self transcendence. Do something for others. And so it might be volunteering through their church, or it might be that they have on the school board, or it might be that they run for political office and be a mayor, or they but something that serves their community. So that's the dream, probably, of people everywhere. Certainly has been in America.
Great. Thank you so much, George. And thank you, viewers. See you again with another episode. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.